Okay, Assalamualaikum and good morning. We are back now for our main session. Our main speaker of the day, Dr. Muhammad Hamzaman, will touch about this very interesting topic, love your heart. Like what we mentioned in our promotional posters. Okay. Uh, Good health and good mind will create good relationship for good architecture. So this is our one of our webinar series on this PAM medical series. Okay. So without further ado, I will invite our moderator, Mr. Vishal. Hello, Mr. Vishal.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay.
But Can you please allow me to be on screen?
I think you need to. There we can see you now.
Okay. Yes, it's much better. Yes.
All right. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Vishal, our moderator for this main session. Okay. Up to you. Go to Mr. Vishal now.
Hello, good morning. Selamat pagi, selamat sejahtera kepada semua orang. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Muhammad Hamza for joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. Of course, I'd like to also take this moment to introduce that our speak today will be about cardiovascular disease, and the talk will focus on the heart of disease. So I'll be moderating a Q&A session when this particular session is over, and I hope that everyone can join us. Let's make this session as interactive as possible. For the previous session, we had a good number of questions from the audience, so I'm hoping that we can get a similar amount of enthusiasm to speak to the good doctor here. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Muhammad Hamza bin Zaman to please present with us his presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vishal.
Oh, very happy to be here.
Good morning to everyone. You guys can hear me, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much to the Persatuan Architect Malaysia for inviting me this morning. Quite a good attendance. I guess for most of you, you're probably stuck at home because of the rain and all that. So I'm actually dialing in or zooming in from Johor Bahru because I came down to fetch my son. So I guess it's quite near to where your southern chapter is. So I shall be talking to you guys about heart disease. And can you see my slides?
Yes, doctor.
All right, good. Okay, so the topic that was given to me, or the one I suggested, was love your heart or heart to heart. So I shall, for the next 1 hour or so, be talking to you about the heart and heart disease. So I've roughly divided into two aspects. One would be what a normal heart is, what causes heart disease, and an important half of the talk would be how to prevent from any one of us from getting heart disease. Yeah. And I understand there'll be some time for question and answers. So I will try to finish this as quickly as possible so that we'll have time for discussion. So yes, I would be more than happy to answer any questions from any of you. All right, so when we talk about the heart, okay, if I were to operate on someone's heart and open the chest, I'm basically a heart surgeon, and I'm working one of the private hospitals in the country. And prior to that, I was for quite some time in the Ministry of Health, working in the government hospitals. So when I open someone's chest, this is how the heart would look like. It's actually a muscular organ, okay? So the heart is actually in the center part of the chest, straddled by the lungs, and on the right side here and on the left side. And basically it is a muscle, a piece of muscle which pumps blood throughout the body. It's connected by a network of blood vessels, okay? Now, why it's in red and in blue in color? Because as the heart pumps out, it pumps out blood through the left side of the heart, pumps out blood, which carries oxygen, the food, any nutrients that will nourish the organs and tissues in the body. And it goes to the brain, it goes down into the chest, to the legs, the arms, our kidneys, liver, and then it returns back, okay? It returns back in this vessel called the vena cava, which then carries blood, which now has been depleted of its oxygen, and it goes back to the right side of the heart, where then the right side of the heart will then pump to the lungs. That's how it's interconnected in between. Now, the heart, can I just ask you quickly, when do you think the heart starts beating? Anybody? Any idea?
Is born a baby?
Okay, but actually the heart starts beating roughly about 4 weeks after conception. Okay, 4 weeks after conception means even the mother carrying the child or the baby does not even know that she's pregnant. Okay, so at that point we don't even resemble a human being. We are something like a small dot, and eventually we go and become bigger and we look like a tadpole, and after that if it's get bigger, that's where the baby gets bigger. So roughly about 4 weeks after conception, the heart starts beating, and until the time that we obviously pass away, the heart continues to beat. Why is it so? Because it consists of what we call heart muscles. Okay, now these heart muscles are specialized muscles which do not tire. Okay, it continues to beat forever until any diseases or anything that makes it to stop beating. Okay, because it is connected very closely to each other, and it works in tandem, and it works most of the time in a coordinated fashion. That's how it works very effectively to pump blood throughout the body. Now, when we talk about heart diseases, there are actually many types of heart diseases. Disease of the blood vessels that supply the heart, because the heart itself requires its own nourishment for it to work effectively. Within the heart, there are some structures called the valves, which allow blood to flow only in one direction. So it's always a forward flow. You do not get blood flowing to the backwards unless it is diseased. The vessels of the heart can also become damaged. Various factors will cause damage of the blood vessels, and usually can enlarge or it can rupture in between, a term called internal dissection or aortic dissection. Some children are born with what we call congenital heart disease. They are born with heart diseases, some with holes in the heart, some where the blood vessels are twisted. So there are many types of heart diseases, okay? But this morning, I'm just going to talk to you about one aspect of heart disease which afflict adult males usually, okay? Which are the diseases affecting the blood vessels of the heart, called the coronary arteries, okay? We have two major coronary arteries, one on the right side of the heart, which supplies the right side of the heart, and the other one supplies the left side of the heart, obviously called the left coronary artery, which actually divides into two, because the left side of the heart works harder, so it has to pump blood throughout the body. So it has a dual supply, which is to the front and then to the back of the heart. So this animation depicts blood flowing in the bloodstream, okay? Now, it's not just the blood. Blood consists of various components. You've got the white blood cells, the red blood cells, the platelets, each with its own function. But also at the same time, dissolved in the bloodstream, in the blood, what we have, for example, you guys have had your breakfast this morning. So it will be in the form of sugar, carbohydrates, it will be in the form of proteins, it will be in the form of fats. So now over a period of time, particularly fat will be sticking into the inner lining of the blood vessel. And what happens is we have our own internal mechanism to try and clean it up. It's just like something like vacuuming the floor of our house. And after a while, the vacuum bag will become filled with this cholesterol, and it will then deposit or be sticking onto the vessel wall. And over a period of time, this will cause narrowing of the blood vessel. Okay. And this process has actually been going on for many, many years without us realizing, because you do not have any symptoms until a certain percentage of the blood vessel becomes narrowed. Now, I shall spend a little bit of time talking about why disease happens, because blood flows in this white area here, okay? And what happens is there is an inner lining. It's something like, I'm talking to a group of architects, so you'll probably be able to understand better if I tell you the inner lining is like the lining of the floor, like the linoleum or whatever lining that the floor has. But that lining is actually very thin. Now, this lining is actually very sensitive, but also at the same time, it plays a very important role because it secretes chemicals. And these chemicals can regulate the vessels to become larger, bigger, or smaller in response to whatever activities, even to weather. And also the inner lining causes the blood to remain in a fluid or liquid sort of a state. And if there's any damage to the blood vessels, it can cause the blood vessel to secrete chemicals, which can cause the blood to thicken and sometimes to form clots as well. Okay, so that's the basis of the blood vessels, how it maintains flow in the bloodstream. And if there's any damage to this inner lining here called the endothelium, that's where disease process come. Now, one of the most important process of damage to this inner lining is what we call an inflammation. So inflammation is basically, now I'm sure some of us, when we were much younger, we would have fallen, for example, we tripped and fell and grazed our arms and all that. So that's a form of inflammation. Now, inflammation is basically a body's response to any injury. And what causes injury to this blood vessel, this inner lining? Conditions like diabetes, where sugar is actually toxic to this inner lining. High levels of sugar for a long period of time will cause damage to this inner lining, the endothelium, okay? Hypertension, stress on this inner lining here will also cause damage. Now, this endothelium are cells which are one cell layer thick. They are very close together, okay? But when that's damaged, it will then become separated apart slightly. And this causes a chain of reaction, which will eventually cause deposition of cholesterol into the bloodstream, which will then initially is below the surface, but after a period of time, it will accumulate and cause narrowing of the blood vessel. Okay, just like the animation I showed you just now. Now, when I said it has been going on for a period of time now, certain studies have shown that all these changes which I spoke to you about started even in the first decade of life. As young as a 10-year-old child has been shown to have this deposition of cholesterol. Why? As a result of diet. Why? As a result of all those damages have occurred, even things like environment, like pollution. Okay, all that can cause damage to the blood vessel itself. And it's also a disease and aging process. Okay, as we grow older, our blood vessels will become more, less supple. It will become thicker, and also there'll be more turbulent flow, causing further damage to the blood vessel and deposition of cholesterol, and eventually causing narrowing of the blood vessel. Now, what happens is when the blood vessels are narrowed, you do not have much symptoms until about 75% of the diameter of this blood vessel becomes closed off, okay? Or as in the process of deposition of cholesterol, it breaks off suddenly. As a result, say, for example, the blood pressure goes up suddenly. Usually your blood pressure is about 110 or 120. For whatever reason, the blood pressure shoots up, in a period of stress. Some ladies who are pregnant, where their blood pressure suddenly shoots up, okay? And it can break off this cholesterol plaques, as we call it, and it will then flow downstream. And the point where it blocks off the blood vessel is what we term a heart attack, or in medical terms, it's called a myocardial infarction. And if blood flow is not restored within a few minutes, this area here in black will become damaged. Some can be permanent, or some can be significantly damaged to even cause or affect the function of the heart itself. So if the blockage or damage happens much more proximal, say for example here, where it supplies two parts of the heart, the front and the back of the left side of the heart, the muscles can be damaged significantly, and that's how sometimes some patient can suddenly drop dead and die. Now, although nowadays, for the last couple of years, we've been preoccupied with the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused more than, I think, 3 million deaths. Mind you, cardiovascular disease overall for the last 15 to 20 years has caused more than 17.5 million, almost 18 million deaths worldwide on an annual basis. Okay, so it's still the #1 cause of hospitalization, and it's still the #1 cause of death in both developing and developed countries. Okay, only in the poor, less developed countries, low-income countries, where infectious diseases are more than heart disease. But even in the overall scheme of things, it is still, heart disease is still amongst the top 3 causes of death and hospitalization, even in those countries as well. Now, back home, closer to Malaysia, we will see that it is one of the top 5 killers. In fact, it's I think it's the top for the last 10 to 15 years as well. It is the top killer in Malaysia, responsible one quarter of deaths in our hospitals in the country. Okay. And the average age of Malaysians suffering from heart attack is about 58.5 years. Now, this is significant because worldwide, especially in the developed countries, the average age of patients suffering from heart attack is usually 5 to 10 years older. Okay, so we are getting it at a much younger age group, and that's kind of worrying. Okay, and why? Why is all this happening? Because of all these statistics. These are what we call the risk factors for heart diseases. 77% of Malaysians, more than 2/3 of Malaysians are obese. Old. Why? Because he did not take care of his health very well, and especially with the pandemic, you are locked down. There's not much activity, so you do online work, you eat, smoke, and what happens is it causes a stress on the heart, and he actually suffered a heart attack, a massive heart attack. He survived, but obviously he needs to go for further treatment for such things.
Dr. Hamza?
Yes. Hello? Can you hear me? Can I proceed? Okay, so can you guys see this and hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Everything runs smooth, doctor.
All right, thank you. All right, so you're seeing this animation where it shows the blood vessels, which is the right side of the heart. Okay, the blood supply, the right side of the heart is the blood vessel I was talking about. And this is the left system, which divides into 2, one that goes to the front and the other goes to the back of the heart. So if I were to talk about what are the risk factors, because heart disease is so common throughout the world, we are able to identify who are the people who are at risk. Now, there are 2 major risk factors, what we call non-modifiable risk factors, and the other one is modifiable risk factors. Now, the non-modifiable risk factors include age. Okay, it's a disease of aging. Okay,
Hello.
you see those 60s and above. But we're now seeing, especially amongst Malaysians, we're now seeing younger and younger patients. Those in their 30s, those who are 40s is quite common. Those in the 50s is basically the average age group that Malaysians are suffering from heart disease. Okay, and that's not good. Okay, because at the age of 30, your family is still young, and if you happen to suffer from a heart disease, then you have to be really, really serious about taking care of it, or better still, prevent from getting heart disease. If there is a strong family history, your parents, your siblings have heart disease, then you have to be very careful about it. Okay. Now, gender, most people think that usually happens in the men, but I'll show you later the statistics to show that women are equally at risk of getting heart disease, if not more. Okay. Now, the other big group are what we call the modifiable risk factors, which include the points or the factors which I mentioned just now: obesity, problems with the cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. And just now I tuned into a little bit to what Mr. Teo from Paint Masters or Seamaster Paints was talking about, the effect of the environment and pollution. Okay, the VOC is the volatile organic compounds. We spend about 60% to 70% of our time indoors. Okay, and the effect of indoors, the pollution, indoor pollution, outdoor pollution can also have effect on many of our illnesses, which include also cardiovascular diseases, the water that we drink as well, and also from soil contamination, either directly or indirectly. And other contributing factors, which include fast foods. Now, trans fats, what are trans fats? These are chemicals or fats which have been artificially created to make the food last longer on the shelf life, to make the food more palatable and tastier. Okay, but these chemicals are not natural, and they have been shown to have an effect on our health, especially our cardiovascular health. Okay, smoking, obviously, stress, okay, excessive sugar for those people who are diabetics, or even those who like to drink sugary drinks, or even eat sweet foods, like all the savories and all that. Okay, and even those who exercise excessively can also can cause damage to the heart. Okay. Now, stress. Okay, stress at work. Going to and fro from work. Stress at home between spouses, children, and all that. Stress with your in-laws. Okay, and now being at home with the COVID has also caused a lot of stress, which also in the long term can cause damage to the heart. It's been shown, and this is a study from Sweden, which showed that they studied about 100, and this is a population study. They studied 150,000 patients who have heart disease and subjected to various forms of stress. Okay, and they showed that compared to those, their own siblings who did not have all these stress-related problems, and it's been shown that those patients who have had stress-related problems were at a high risk of getting heart attacks, stroke, and also getting high blood pressure. So stress is also a major important factor in causing heart disease. Now, if you have if you have all risk factors, depending on whether you have 1, 2, or 3 risk factors, obviously the more risk factors you have, the more risk of getting heart disease is going to be there. Now, let's go on to women and heart disease, the facts. Okay, 1 out of 3 women die of heart disease. If you add all the causes of heart disease, these are statistics from the States. Okay, if you add all the cancers that are particular to women, usually the cancers of the reproductive organs, the ovarian cancer, the uterine cancer, cervical cancers, and all that, breast cancer, you add all the deaths as a result of all these cancers, it still cannot reach the number of deaths which are due to cardiovascular disease. Okay, so this is something which a lot of people do not realize. A lot of women do not realize that this is a major problem, okay, which largely actually can be preventable. Now, why is it so? Primarily because of this post-menopausal age group. With modern day health facilities, healthcare, and all that, a lot of women are growing to a much older age group and usually past the menopausal age. Now, when ladies, you are when you're younger, during the childbearing age group, your hormones are protecting you. But once you reach the menopausal age group, the hormones are no longer protective, okay? And you are at similar risk, if not higher, than a man from getting cardiovascular disease. A lot of women are now smoking, and that also increases the risk of heart disease. Lack of exercise, which leads to putting on body weight, leads to hypertension, and that leads to high blood pressure. Majority of ladies in the world do not exercise, unfortunately, okay? And we talk about diabetes, we talk about the risk of hypertension. So Malaysia, being Malaysians, we are no longer a fit nation, okay? Amongst our peers in this Southeast Asia region, we are number 1 in terms of being overweight, okay? We are no longer a fit nation, but we are more like a fat nation, okay? And it is a major problem, big problem. This is a certain study that was done in 2019. The Ministry of Health conducts what we call national health mobility studies, looking at the health of the population from time to time. It's every 3 to 4 years they'll conduct this survey, okay? And it's been shown that these are the number of figures, and it's actually quite frightening, okay? You can see that our number of patients of both men and women who are overweight and those category who are obese, okay? And not only that, we are also seeing younger children, children who should actually be out in the open, exercising and all that. They are not doing so, and now they're putting on weight, and about 30% of them between the ages of 5 to 17 are considered as overweight, okay? And what are the factors? Foods, especially fast foods, physical inactivity. And why not? Now you have the mobile phone. They're always on the phone all the time. The computers are available 24 hours. TV is available 24 hours. Even playing, recently there was this online game, what do you call it, Dota, esports, okay? There's a term called esports, and they actually can make a lot of money from that, okay? And for those who are really active, but it requires a lot of time to be on it, obviously, to be successful. And this will have a health effect on your physical health as well. We talked about environment just now. So environment does play a role in health. And I'm sure you all know about sick building syndrome, this kind of things, okay? childhood obesity because of easy availability of fast foods. And this increasing trend is going to be worrying because in years to come, there'll be more children who will be having all these risk factors. They will be obese, and obesity can lead to diabetes, and they're going to get the disease at a much younger age group than we as their parents are currently facing. Okay, and without all the other factors, which include, you know, all the TVs and mobile phones which are available, so they're not out there in the fields playing. Okay, they are playing games on videos, and the only exercise that they get is just exercising their fingers, clicking the mouse. So what are the symptoms for patients with heart disease? So symptoms include chest pain, breathlessness. These are the two most common symptoms that one can get. Usually this chest pain or breathlessness come about when you are exerting yourself, when you say, for example, climbing upstairs, or, you know, previously you were able to jog for 1 kilometer. Now, even a few steps or so, you're feeling the tightness or even chest pain. Okay. A third, or not a third, about 25% of patients, when they first know that they had disease, when they suddenly collapse. This is termed sudden death. And if they are witnessed and revived through the CPR and all that, then they will normally, you know, be able to be treated further. But of course, some people suddenly drop dead and die. And usually after postmortem, we are then able to determine that they have got heart disease. Palpitations, you know, when you're, say, for example, you have to give a talk to someone or give a lecture online or even face-to-face, you have that kind of palpitations prior to your talks. That's quite common. But if you're, say, sitting at home or at your work and suddenly you feel this, the fast beats of your heart, then that's abnormal and you have to get it checked, obviously. For ladies, your symptoms tend to be a bit more different, because I suppose ladies, you tend to have a higher tolerance to pain as compared to men. Men, of course, being more manja, okay? So they tend to experience the pain much more, and they will tend to be more sort of observant pain. Whereas ladies, your symptoms can be a bit odd, and I'm sure you all have this kind of symptoms, you know, upper body aches here and there, neck pain, jaw pain, everywhere pain, unexplained tiredness, you know, dizziness or lightheadedness, shortness of breath, you know, feeling a bit nauseous and all that. So if previously you've been well and suddenly you experience this kind of symptoms, it's best that you have it checked to ensure that you do not have any heart disease. It may just be a common, you know, stress of work kind of thing, but perhaps you might want to get it checked on sooner rather than later, right? So how do we diagnose heart disease? There are many tests that needs to be done, which include stress tests, all this, but the ultimate test will actually be this angiogram, which involves putting in a wire which goes up to the heart, and we inject some contrast media, and we are able to see it's like a road map for the vessels of the heart. Okay, so we are able to tell the narrowing. And the medication, there are 3 forms of treatment. One is taking medicine for the control of your blood pressure, for diabetes and cholesterol. And sometimes if one group of medicine is not enough, you might need to add a few more, okay? So in terms of, you'll be multicolored sometimes, and you have to take like 2 or 3 medicines. I'm sure some of your, say, for example, your parents, or God forbid, you yourself have suffered from all these diseases. You would know what I'm talking about when you have to take all these medicines. Now, the other form of treatment is what we call stents. This is when the cardiologists, there are 2 groups of doctors. One are the cardiologists, okay? They're the ones who are going to diagnose. They're going to treat the narrowed vessels by putting in either the balloons or the stents inside. Previously, we used to use the balloon, but over a period of time, usually within 2 or 3 years, the blood vessels will become narrowed again. Okay, so now we put in stent. Okay, now these stents are like the spring in your ball pen. The only difference is that the spring in your ball pen is about maybe 1 cent or even less than that. But the stents here can range between 8 to 12,000 ringgits, depending on the type of what do you call this, stents that you use. Okay, this is my area of heart surgery, and I'm going to show you a video, a very quick video of, we show what heart surgery is all about. This is basically what we call a bypass. We take the blood vessels from your own body or from the patient's body, and which bypasses the narrowed or blocked segment. Okay, so it's a length of vessel that's taken from either from behind the breastbone here, or from the legs, or from the arms, and we bypass the narrowed segment. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video which shows. So those of you who are squeamish, you can turn your face from the screen. But I'm going to show you a video which shows the what we call the anastomosis, or where we join the blood vessels of the body from the leg to the non-disease segment of the heart itself. So the heart stops.
Okay.
So we identify where the vessel is, and beyond the narrowing, we open up the vessel.
The van is on.
It's taken from the leg of the patient. Now, for those of you who are tall, you are advantaged because your legs and obviously long enough. Those of you who are short, you better ensure that you all are healthy, so that you know, you also have some quality veins to make use of. I'm just joking. Nothing to discriminate between those who are tall or thin. It's a bit of a joke to make sure you guys are awake. Okay, so that's how we do it. It's sewn by hand. And depending on the number of vessels which are narrowed, that's the number of vessels that we will use the grafts, put the grafts on. Okay. So well and good. I mean, that's what we do on a regular basis, but you have to realize that, you know, there are, for example, like in Serdang Hospital where I used to work, or even in Penang, in the government hospital where I used to work, the waiting list for surgery is about 1 year, okay? Because there's so many patients who and these are patients who have been referred to us for surgery. We're not talking about those who are undergoing stents by the cardiologist and all that, okay? But it's like, for us, I mean, not to denigrate our profession, but basically, we are just trying to mop up the floor, okay? Because there's so many patients with heart disease, we can only do so much. And in terms of limitation, in terms of manpower, in terms of space, ICU beds and all that, okay? Whereas it's overflowing with patients. It's like you have a tap which is overflowing, and we cannot resolve all this. You can build so many hospitals and all that and equip it with the latest equipment, but until and unless we address the main issue. And what are the main issues? Which include those risk factors that I talked about, the diabetes, the blood pressure. Basically, it's the lifestyle and also the environment that we need to control at source, right? So the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to talk very briefly about how to prevent heart disease. Now, it's important to understand this concept. This was an article, again, about 15 years ago, which came out, which I thought was a very good depiction of where we need to be and how we need to understand this issue of preventing heart disease. Now, I'm sure you realize that most people will have heart disease are in the later part of their lives, usually in the 5th and 6th decades. Although, like I mentioned earlier, we are seeing them at 30 to 40 years of age. Not that many, but the numbers are increasing. Generally, those who are in their mid-50s to early 60s, that's when you start having heart disease, or they then realize that they've got diabetes, they've got high blood pressure, cholesterol, because all this while is never been checked. You see, you have to understand that why all this happened is it has happened, actually occurred much earlier. Remember the graph which I showed you that diseases have started to happen, or the narrowing of blood vessels or deposition of cholesterol happen in the 10th decade of life. The first decade of 10th, in the 10th decade of life, in which, the first decade of life, in which it's been shown that deposition of cholesterol has happened. So in those age group, between 10 to the teenage groups, nobody really thinks that they're going to be at risk of getting heart disease in the future. So they'll be eating, and we as parents, maybe we contribute to it as well, okay? Where sometimes, you're busy over the week, and then on the weekend is a guilt trip. So you bring your children to the shopping malls or for other trips. And where do you normally go for your foods? Usually to fast food restaurants, right? And we gorge our children with all those unhealthy foods. And that's where they're going to suffer from all these diseases in the future. So when we talk about pillars of health, we don't just talk about from a point of view of reducing weight, exercise. It's also talking about proper nutrition, both in terms of macro and micronutrition. Even these factors about reducing your stress, positive mental attitude, of course, good medical care and all that, okay? And equally important is to reduce those risk factors. Remember, if you remember anything about my talk this morning, remember these 5 factors: diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, obesity, and smoking. Okay, these are the 5 major risk factors. Of course, there are other risk factors, but these are the 5 major risk factors which contribute to heart disease, okay? Now, you can't do much about the non-modifiable risk factors. It's a disease of aging, okay? If you have a strong family history, then you have to be extra careful about taking care of your health. And of course, you need to go for regular medical checkups. Once you're above 35 to 40 years of age, you need to ensure that you need to go for regular medical checkups, okay? Change your lifestyle. It's still not too late, okay? If you're still smoking, I'm sure the members here do not smoke, but if you do smoke, it's time to quit, okay? And if you have children or brothers who are considering to smoke or starting to dabble with smoking, tell them to stop, okay? Exercise is an important regime for health, and there are 5 numbers which you need to know, which I'll tell you afterwards. And of course, you need to change your diet. If all this while it's very little vegetables and fruits and all that, you might want to add that more in your daily routine, okay? So 5 numbers for health, and I'm more than happy to share these slides with you guys if you want to. 5 numbers for health should include your, what do you call this, your BMI, body mass index, which is a ratio between your height and your weight, okay? Roughly, if you're about 175 centimeters, the last 2 numbers, 75 will be your ideal body weight. 75 and below will be your ideal body weight, okay? Blood pressure. So good to invest in a machine that will check your blood pressure on a regular basis, and you want to keep your pressures, the top pressure less than 120 and your lower pressure less than 80. From time to time, you want to check. You can't do this on a fingertip test. You have to go to the hospitals or to the labs, the BP labs and the kind of things, to check your cholesterol levels, usually about 2 to 3 times a year. Invest in this machine. You can check this at home. Okay, this is what we call point of care testing, where you want to keep your sugar levels, less than between 4 to 6. And also maintain a good body weight and try to reduce your belly fat, your abdominal fat. This is just a charting of what BMI is. See, this fat here that we accumulate over a period of time. Now, men tend to accumulate this more than the ladies, and this is what we call the visceral fat. And it's been shown that this visceral fat has an effect on the cardiovascular system, the heart, as well as the blood vessels, by secreting all sorts of chemicals which cause damage to the blood vessel. So this is an important factor to know. We have to educate our children right from young, okay? Because they're going to go to schools. They're going to be eating in the cafeteria. And I'm sure you all know, if you've got children or grandchildren, I'm sure you all know that they are exposed to all the fast foods, because the schools will engage the food contractors, okay? And they're given a certain budget. And the cheapest way to produce food to supply to the schools are going to be all those processed foods and fast foods, okay? So this is something which is, I know that there's a group of mothers or parents who are trying to influence this, the PTAs and all that, to ensure that healthy foods are served at school, but it's easier said than done, right? And I would advocate maybe during your health talks, and I encourage you all for having these health sessions, that you learn about CPR. Especially you have to do it practically, because it's a practical course which is provided by a lot of societies. I'm just going to show you this just to sort of lighten the spirit a little bit. This is from Mr. Bean, someone with a heart attack.
Thank you.
Okay, that was Mr. Bean. All right. Of course, exercise is also important, but you don't really have to do too strenuous an exercise. Just regular aerobics exercise, about 30 minutes, 3 times a week. What we mean by regular aerobic exercise is exercising your big muscles, your hands, your legs, and all that. And either brisk walking or jogging should be more than adequate. But of course, if you can do more, that should be fine. And also equally important is also to build muscle strength and bone strength, because equally important, because as we grow older, our bones will tend to become more what we call osteoporotic. It's less dense in terms of its bone calciums. And if we don't exercise regularly, if we don't build the muscles around the bones tend to become more porous and it tend to break easily as well. Okay. And another aim of the exercise is to help to reduce weight. So no excuses, too old, and no taking of shortcuts. Okay. And any form of exercise is important. Even exercise is important. You can do this, your latter ages will be fantastic. Okay, so you don't actually have to buy expensive equipment. Swimming is just a good form of exercise. Okay, but the easiest form of exercise is actually walking. I know there's a current trend towards cycling nowadays. That's also fine as well, but obviously our roads are not conducive for cycling, and there've been a lot of accidents in the past as well. So 10,000 steps a day, which is roughly equivalent to about 7 kilometers. Okay, and it has to be a little bit of brisk walking rather than just a shopping pace kind of walking, right? Now, how do you know that you're healthy? Okay? For example, if you are, the magic number is 220. Okay, if you say you're 40 years of age, 220 minus your age is 180. That's the maximum heart rate that you want to achieve, but you do not actually need to achieve that maximum heart rate. Okay, so you just need to achieve between 60 to 80% across the ages. If you can reach a target of about 120, that means before you exercise, okay, you check your pulse. And how do you feel your pulse? By testing there'll be a pulsation that's at the base of your thumb here. You can feel a pulsation there. So that pulsation, you time it for about a minute or half a minute times 2, and it has to be regular. Then that's before you start exercise. Then you do your exercise for about half an hour, and you will feel a little bit of, you will perspire a little bit, you will feel your breathing is a bit faster, and you check your heart rate. If it's less than 120, that should be adequate. Okay, whatever form of exercise, you want to play badminton, you want to do jogging, appropriate for your age. Okay, and of course, we talk about stop smoking. And there's also the issue of passive smoking. You may not be smoking, but your colleagues and the environment around you causes a lot of smoke. You're exposed to a lot of cigarette smokes, and those cigarette smokes contain a lot of chemicals, of which 80% of them are cancer causing. Okay, so not only cigarette smoke causes heart disease, it can also cause cancer, especially lung cancer. We talked about the environment, eating healthy, more portions of vegetables. Now, this is a campaign, which is a worldwide campaign, including the one which our Ministry of Health also adopted, which is what we call the suku separuh, a quarter portions of proteins, a quarter portions of your starches, which include your rice, preferably brown rice, and more of it is due from your fruits and vegetables. The trick is put the vegetables and fruits and this your meats first, rather than put your plate full of rice and then you put the vegetables on top of your rice. Okay, and that's not the way. You put your vegetables first, fill it up with all this, and then leave that small portion for your starches. Okay, and that's how there's one way of reducing your calories, and that's one way of reducing your weight as well. You want to have as many colors as naturally as possible, because nowadays it's been shown that all these colors have been shown to have good health effects on you. Okay, all types of colors. Okay, this is the colors of Malaysia. Okay, you have the roti canai, which is very colorful. Nasi lemak, our national dish, is very colorful, but unfortunately it's not as healthy. Okay, You want to cut down on the fast foods, okay? And just now we talked about, and since I'm talking to you guys as architects, you know, how the design or how the, what do you call this, architectural design can have an effect on health itself, okay? Now, this is a spiral staircase in one of the museums in Europe, okay, where it encourages the, you know, the visitors to use the staircase as they climb up the in what would have been a boring flight of stairs. Now, if you go to any buildings, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to teach you guys, but I'm sure you all know this, but if you go to any building, especially in Malaysia here, the first thing that you'll see is either the escalators or the lifts, okay? And because it provides convenience. And the staircase are actually on the sides, are actually at the back, those are emergency staircase, okay? So there's none in the designs which shows that it encourages the people or the population to use the stairs to walk up, okay? Now, this is a design of an ambulatory care center somewhere in the US, which is in a hospital, an ambulatory care center. Imagine a design like that in terms of how it affects the patient psychologically. By just going to these kind of places, you're already like feeling healthy already. This is a children's hospital in Melbourne, okay, in which, and just now we had Mr. Teo from Seamaster who talked about the types of pains and all that, and how it affects the psychology and also the health of the patient itself. Now, next year, we're going to have all those electric vehicles. And this is one of the electric vehicle stations, which also encourages the what do you call this? You have this parking station here, and you have the convenience store a little bit further away, so that it encourages the patrons to walk. Okay, so the whole idea is you get to walk. So I'm sure you guys can come into this by contributing, by looking at ways to how you can influence in terms of the health of the nation itself. Okay. Now, when they talk about the weapons of mass destruction, they tried to find it in Iraq many years ago during the Gulf War. They did not find it. Okay. It's actually in our foods here. Okay, the hidden secret is that it's in the weapons of mass destructions are in our fast food joints, our nasi kandar shop with all the roti canai and the sweet teh tarik. Do you know that our nasi kandar people do not know what the definition of teh tarik kurang manis? Even if you ask for teh tarik kurang manis, it will still be as sweet as hell. Well, I'm not even sure whether hell is sweet or not, but it's sweet as, it's a sweet, okay? And another major important factor in your food is to cut down your salt, because salt contributes to high blood pressure as well. Breakfast, important, unless you're going for those intermittent fastings. Try to enhance your fruit and vegetable intake, because they are important to provide natural sources of antioxidants, because one of the neutralizing factor to neutralize inflammation is what we call an antioxidant, and also the stress factor, okay? So this comes from all the citrus foods, your nuts and vegetables. It's a good idea to take a handful of nuts, the unsalted ones, 2 or 3 times a week, because it's been shown that the vitamins, especially vitamin E from all these nuts, are cardioprotective as well. Okay. If not, you might want to take a plant-based supplements. And more recently, it's been shown that even the gut, you know, our stomach and intestines do play a role in our health of the heart itself, okay? And although we know it as a repository of bacteria, but actually the gut itself contains good bacteria, which contributes to formation of healthy heart, even our stress hormones, even our other hormones which control the cardiovascular system, and even our moods and our what we call this behavior and all that. So it's very important. This is more recent sciences which have shown that the health of our gut has a major influence on our health, especially our heart. Okay. Equally important to take a nap every now and again. Yes, we are meant to sleep between 6 to 8 hours, but equally important to take a short nap of between 15 to 20 minutes in the daytime, because it's been shown that taking this siesta nap for a few minutes in the afternoon is good for your brain health as well as your cardiovascular health as well. There's a lot of studies nowadays about intermittent fasting, fasting for more than 14 or even up to 16 hours. It's been shown to help to get the body to replenish itself, to repair itself. And important, it helps reduce the risk factors like cholesterol, diabetes, and all the inflammatory markers are reduced as well. Okay, so remember, you are what you eat. Are you eating healthy? In a few months, we'll be celebrating the fasting month, or some people would say the feasting month, where all sorts of foods which you do not normally see will now come out, and everybody will be partaking in the festivities during the buka puasa time. Okay, so unfortunately, these are all not healthy. Now, why it's important to know? Because if you talk about cost of optimal health, okay, it's far cheaper. You buy a pair of running shoes to go jogging, nak bergaya sikit, stop smoking, you save a lot of money. Even you invest in a wellness program, that's so still relatively cheap as against the cost of ill health. Now, you want to go to government hospital, it takes ages. There's a long queue. Okay, but if you want to go to the private hospitals, then obviously you have to cough up this either through your insurance or through out-of-pocket pay. Okay, so health is no longer cheap. Now, equally important, what we call the social economic status of the family itself. We tend to underestimate this. Now, this is a story of a young family where the main breadwinner, the father, passed away. He was an offshore engineer, and he had diabetes and hypertension, and he died suddenly. Okay, he was the main sole breadwinner, leaving this young family to take care. And during the last report, this was a couple of years ago, this young family had to be evicted because they could not afford anymore to pay the rents of their home. Okay, so that's also mind sort of boggling to understand that. Okay. Finally, I'll show this video in which during this surgery, I had to remove what we call the cholesterol plaque, which has already caked and form a cast of the blood vessel. Now, the heart is supposed to be, red or meat red in color. You see, it's all yellow in color because of the fat deposition around the heart. And the heart itself, the blood vessel itself, is caked with this. Okay, is this actually cholesterol which is already blocked off the blood vessel, and you had to remove it? It's from a cast inside the blood vessel itself. Okay, that's how long that needed to be removed. So I thank you very much. I've taken about less than an hour. I hope that what I've shared here is an eye-opener for all of you, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions from any of you. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Hello, Dr. Mama Hamza. Thank you so much. That was a very informative presentation. I think some of your videos were not for the squeamish, but it was nonetheless, it was good education for all of us, I think.
I hope
I think this is the first time.
well.
Sorry?
Was the video clear?
Yes, very, very, a bit too clear.
Okay, too
clear. For those of us who are not, how do I say, have the heart for it, it was a bit too clear. Yeah. Anyway, regardless though, it was a good presentation, and I think it's really important to see why the current situation is making things difficult for those of us with bad health issues, especially the heart. So I think today is a real eye opener. So Dr. Mama Hamza, I'd like to take this moment to initiate the Q&A session. And I have a couple of questions in the chat box that I would like to start off this Q&A session with, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's already up. Yeah. Okay. The first question is by Norina Muhammad Hawi. And the built environment is always designed to ease. And have we designed too much to ease that the effects of the natural process of health balance, lifts instead of stairs, shorter distance instead of longer routes? I just need your opinion. How far do we balance efficiency and health? That's a very, very powerful question, I think.
Okay. How far do we balance efficiency? I think it's I think nowadays people talk about I think this is very important, where we talk about balance in terms of efficiency and health, because even from the health point of view as well, yes, everything now is a convenience. We are hospital are talking about what do you call this, electronic medical records, making everything more convenient, and it's all towards the patient. Okay, now obviously, if for example, even like online appointments, what do you call this, even for us to book any what do you call this, theater times and all that, operation theater times. So again, efficiency is important, but also equally important is how it has effect on the patient's health. Okay. Now, from the patient's health point of view, what we need to promote is, and I think from my point of view, I think there's an equal balance. Although I'm in private practice, and obviously, and even for you guys in the industry as well, the more clients that you have means it transfers to dollars and cents, right? But at the same time, we also have to be responsible in terms of our patients' health and well-being. Okay. Now, anything that makes it efficient. Now, if you talk about, for example, if you have now self-driving cars, you have all those everything, you can order anything on the, what do you call this, at the end of your fingertips, grab food, and everything is delivered to your doorsteps. Where does that leave the patient? Now, obviously, that is the responsibility of the healthcare industry, not just the healthcare industry, but you guys as well, to promote health, what do you call this, health campaigns. Design things in a way that you will get the patients to do their part, the clients to do their part, to do the extra mile to walk, but make it pleasant. Remember I was showing you the spiral staircase, where you, by going up the staircase without realizing it, because by design, if you have anything that's convenient and easy, people will take that route, right? But if you have also an alternative which is equally attractive, you have that staircase where you see, as you go up the staircase, you find that there are all sorts of interesting things to appreciate and see. And it may not necessarily just have to be in hospitals, but any building designs, then that will be one way of promoting health. I should think it that way, right?
I guess so, yeah. As long as we can encourage people to be a bit more active, encourage movement and such, it's probably a good way to start, I guess.
Yeah, positive distraction. That's
yeah,
right.
Positive distraction. I like the sound of that. Positive distraction.
Yeah.
There's another question by architect Mumtaza, and in this regards to the effect of VOC, volatile organic compounds. We spoke about this in the previous speaker, and the question is as follows: how does VOC affect the heart, and is it an odor? And are these VOC molecules in the air? That's the first question. The second one is, can hormone replacement therapy, HRT, help to reduce heart diseases in postmenopausal stage for ladies?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first.
Okay.
Well, various studies have shown that it does not actually significantly reduce the symptoms, okay, of heart disease. But sorry, it will not reduce the effects of heart disease, but it will reduce the postmenopausal symptoms. Okay, there are a few studies which show, but a lot of other bigger studies have shown it to be equivocal in terms of reducing effects of heart disease. Still, the most important is maintaining your weight, reduce diabetes, high blood pressure, and all that. Okay. Now, the first question about VOCs. Now, VOCs exist in both the what do you call it? It's in a gaseous form, and if we, especially when you're just in a newly sort of finished building and all that, and it's still in the environment, in the air, it will enter into the body, and it has a gaseous effect on the inner lining of the blood vessels. Although, of course, it's not as much as what I mentioned just now, the elevated sugar levels, the stress and all that, but it's been shown that VOCs have got an effect on the environment or the blood vessel, health of the blood vessel itself. Okay. So if you want to be in a building, especially if you spend a lot of time indoors, it's a good idea to have, say, for example, an air filter to treat that. Because like I mentioned earlier, you spend about, depending on the kind of work that you do, 60 to 80% of the time in the indoors. And indoor air pollution actually is much higher than compared to outdoor pollution because of basically the length of time that we stay in. What should we equip to prevent sudden death or heart attacks? Actually, I guess for buildings, there are things like, those what we call automatic defibrillators. That's usually in buildings. That now, not a lot of buildings, public buildings now have those kind of equipment. But at home, I mean, if you want to, of course, you can have it. But you nowadays they call it automatic or semi-automatic, whereby you just follow the instructions. You activate it. It's an automated system. And remember, although it was shown by Mr. Bean, but it basically puts the pads onto the chest, and they will tell you where to place the pads if someone has suffered a heart attack, and then you can place it so that it will then automatically deliver the shock. But more importantly, is actually to equip yourself with the knowledge on how to manage when someone collapses, either at home or in front of you, by learning about CPR, first aids. Okay. Another important equipment to have is, of course, those equipment like your blood pressure equipment, and also to check your diabetes. The what we call the glucometer. Okay, to check that at home, and you want to keep that into a book, or on your phone and all that, so that whenever you go to see your doctors every few months, you can show your recordings to see what your levels are. Okay, because it's not just a sudden reading. Say, for example, after this talk, you're all stressed up and you check your blood pressure, it goes up to about 150, 180, well, 150 or so. All this while your blood pressure is about 110, 120. Okay, so that's quite normal. But maybe once you later in the evening, you check your blood pressure is about 110, 120, that's okay. But let's say over a period of time, few months, you notice that your blood pressure is slowly creeping up. Then you might want to go and see your doctor. You consult and see whether should you be taking, or what's causing you to have your blood pressure, or whether you need to be on medication or many other ways to help to control your blood pressure. One important fundamental point about controlling all these risk factors is to control the body weight. Okay, it's been shown that just by reducing your body weight down to your ideal body weight level, your blood pressure will be better controlled, will be lowered and better controlled. Diabetes also will be better controlled. Even the cholesterol levels also will be better controlled, or some even back down to normal.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have another question from Mazlin bin Ghazali, and the question is something like this, yeah? Many of us are already past 50 and our blood vessels may have already been damaged. To what extent and lifestyle changes and or medication can we use to reverse the damage? I mean, most of us are definitely within, above 40 or 50. So what's the best advice for people of our age?
Stop smoking, still reduce your body weight, reduce your stress level if that's possible, adequate sleep. Many people underestimate the importance of adequate rest and sleep. More healthy diet, even though it's it's not too late. More fruits and vegetables. There are very good books, Reversing Heart Disease by Dr. Dean Ornish. There are these advocates from even major centers like Cleveland Clinic, Dr. Esselstyn, who says he's done studies where people change their diet to almost, or even, he's very strict, he's a vegetarian or vegan diet altogether. Okay, although personally I do not think it's really necessary, but yes, you might want to add more fruits and vegetables to your diet rather than have a couple of meatless days in a week. Okay, that will go a long way towards reversing heart disease or controlling all these things. And of course, the exercise.
Yeah, I think in Malaysia that's easier said than done.
Yeah,
so much
right.
of good food everywhere you go, and every other day you can have something new and tasty. Yeah? So much easier said than done. The next question is also by architect Mufaza. Can having heart disease affect a person's cognitive level or thinking level or decision making?
Yes, it can to a certain extent, depending on what do you call this, the level or severity. Of the heart disease itself. Okay, obviously if it's mild, your symptoms are controlled, then you can do whatever work that you are doing, almost like normal. But there are people who have been affected quite badly as a result of, say, for example, a major event. So for example, like heart attack, he spends quite some time in the hospital, or if he's had treatment and he's still not out of it yet, he still have some symptoms. There are patients who had say for example, stents inserted, they've had bypass surgery done, and yet they are not relieved from all those things yet. They still have the chest pains, they still have perhaps the palpitation, the shortness of breath, or it may be even though certain tests have been done to show that it's all normal, but because of that worry, okay, and that worry can sometimes be debilitating, that sometimes can be pathological. Okay, so not common, but nowadays it's been shown that there is a lot of link between heart disease and your emotional well-being. There's even a syndrome, a heart condition called broken heart syndrome, takut subuh disease, where you have a lot of worry. For example, a loved one has passed away, okay, or separated, whatever, and that worry, that emotional situation causes you to even have a heart condition, which causes the heart to weaken, and you have symptoms and signs like although it's heart disease, but when it's actually checked, it's not so bad. And usually once that emotional condition is reversed, that condition is also the heart condition is also reversed as well. But of course, it can, if you linger on it, it can even lead to even the demise of the patient. You've seen, especially couples who have been together for so many years, and one of them passed away very soon after, the partner will pass away as well. It's quite common, right?
I think, is that the term? I think the term is called psychosomatic, is when the mind can affect the body and vice versa, or something of that nature.
That's right.
Yeah, it's incredible, the power of the mind over the body and vice versa.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, incredible.
Subconscious mind.
Yeah. So the other question, of course, I'm going to just mention some of the questions I was also interested in. Yes, we all know about children right now. They all just sit in front of their screens and iPads, and they just keep on playing games and things like that. And the concern right now is how do we actually get them out again into the playgrounds and getting them to play games and things of that nature? I mean, what are the things we can encourage the kids to be a bit more active rather than sit so placidly in front of a screen all day playing games or whatever?
Well, I think obviously it's the duty of every parent in the family, but of course the environment itself is important, and also the authorities to the environment itself. I remember when we were much younger, looking for fields to play football, whatever, is easy. Nowadays, it's confined to clubs and things like that. Any open space is now a development reserve kind of space, And if you guys are into designings of buildings or apartments and all that, please ensure that there's adequate space for, for the children, for the invalid, for them to, play about and all that, because it goes a long way towards promoting health. So I guess in your design, that's why I brought up the salutogenic effect, which it was something which I was exposed to when I was in the ministry, where I think some architects from abroad who came over, and they gave, and it was a real eye-opener. We didn't realize at that time how all this would have effect on your health, So the architects of the future will have to help in you all play a major role as well in health promotion, I should think.
Nice. I have another question from the audience, Mok Yon Phai, I think. His or her question is, any method other than operation to reduce the thickening of blood vessels? Or there's medicine and all that for that?
Well,
or
you
is
see,
this operation?
our blood vessels, I didn't elaborate at that time, but it actually consists of 3 layers. The middle layer is actually a mixture of muscles as well as connective tissues. These are supporting tissues, of which includes elastin and collagen and all that. So those are what you call supporting structures, which make our blood vessels supple, and as well it can dilate and constrict whenever it's necessary in response to activities. So as we grow older, the production of a collagen, elastin becomes reduced. It's also a factor of aging. Why? Because again, it depends on our diet. We may not be taking too much fruits and vegetables naturally. And these fruits and vegetables contains all the factors like vitamins and many materials which help in the formation of this collagen. So if we are taking fruits and vegetables, or if not, take a plant-based supplement and all that, to supplement this in the promotion, in the production of all this collagen and all that, okay, then it will help to maintain the blood vessels to be supple and less thickened over a period of time. Other things like cutting down on salt, okay, and anything that damages the blood vessels, cutting down on sugar, okay, and healthy drinks like, for example, green tea, or even coffee, which has been imbued with all those antioxidants. Those do help as well. But try not to take all those 3-in-1 mixtures because they contain a lot of sugars. Okay, and yeah, those are the kind of things. And
so what about, well, when you go for like a fruit juice, when you oh, we had a young kid somewhere. What about fruit juices? I mean, for instance, they keep saying that the sugar is natural. Does that count somehow? If the sugar is natural, is it less dangerous? If the sugar is artificial, is it more dangerous? I mean, how does it work in that sense?
Okay, very good question. Now, if we take say a juice and squeeze it, okay, say for example an orange and we squeeze it, the sweetness or the sourness or the mixture of it, part of the sugars from the fruits are called fructose. Okay, now fructose itself is also can cause damage to the blood vessel, but not as much as sucrose, which is the simple sugar, the processed sugar. Okay, so if you want to take fruit juice, yes, you can do so, but don't add any extra sugars to it. And if you're diabetic, just be careful, you monitor your sugar levels. Okay, now artificial sugars, they are both, for example, like sugar replacements, like what do you call this, equal, or even those other what do you call this, slip my mind what the term, the chemical name is, but those artificial sugars are okay, especially if they are plant-based. But there are hidden sugars in, for example, like your cordials. Now, between natural squeezed juice, cordials are usually, they don't even have the orange or apple, whatever in it. It just contains sugar and artificial taste. Okay, so when you go to the shops, read the labels. Okay, because those labels will tell you whether they are juice concentrates, they are natural juice without any added sugars, or they're just cordials. Now, avoid the cordials, avoid the 3 or 2-in-1, and if possible, buy your own fruits and make juices out of it yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. We have another question, this time from Architect Muntaza again. We always hear about COVID-19 affecting respiratory systems. Does it affect the heart as well?
Yes, it does. It causes a condition called myocarditis. That means it's inflammation of the heart. Very rarely, it also causes inflammation within the blood vessel walls and causing what do you call this, blood clots to form, just like a heart attack. Okay, and even the vaccines themselves has been shown. In fact, I was just before I went on air, I was reading where one of the vaccines called Moderna has more of this myocarditis effect as compared to the Pfizer vaccine. But if you compare between the vaccines as to the actual virus itself, the side effects of the vaccine causing myocarditis is definitely much less. I think in the ratio of 10 times less as compared to the actual virus itself. So that's why, the health authorities are still, despite, the pandemic has been stretched over 2 years, they're still getting us to go for the booster shots and all that. Okay, because of the unwanted effects of the what do you call this, the actual COVID-19 virus itself, as compared to the side effects that you can get from the vaccine itself. That's a whole different chapter, lecture altogether.
What will be the next talk? Maybe sometime next year. We have a question from Hazri Abdul Aziz. And his question is, how much sleep do we really need for those who are above 40? And would there be any effect to our heart if we sleep less than what we are recommended?
Well, it's actually a long-term effect. It's not an immediate kind of thing. But if we are someone who sleep late, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and wake up early in the morning, so that short period of time of rest, obviously over a period of time, it's going to cause a lot of stress onto your body. Now, it's recommended that you get for adults, between 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, but it has to be good quality sleep. But other studies have shown we actually need 2 periods of sleep. One is the rest period, where we sleep when we retire in the evening and wake up early. So best to sleep, say, for example, at 10 o'clock, and wake up about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, where you are actually fresh at that period of time. And then the short period of nap in the day, in the afternoon, about around lunchtime, just before, after lunch, for about half an hour. Okay, that will freshen your mind especially. Okay, so not just the length of time of sleep, but also the quality of sleep, especially your deep sleep that you get. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Sleep is something definitely most of us do enjoy every once in a while. So do we have any more questions from the audience? Any of the participants here today?
I think there are two attendees who raised their hand in the participant box. Maybe we can ask them allow the host to get the audio listen. First, we get this from Mr. Sui Guat Oi. Do you wish to ask the question directly to our speaker today?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Sui. Are you still around? Do you wish to ask our doctor here? One last call for Mr. Sui. I think we can move to the next question, Mr. Bisha.
Well, this one is from Mr. Cha Yao Ching. And doctor, can you advise us the right posture and of things to concern when we need to sit in front of the screen all day long?
Yeah,
I think most of us are in that situation almost all the time.
That's right. Yeah, nowadays, right? Well,
Yeah.
of course, not just the posture, but the ergonomics of things. For example, the right posture would be to keep your back straight as much as possible, and your bum that you're sitting on has to be properly sort of rested on either something that will support the weight. From time to time, especially they say take breaks every half an hour or so. And if you're on those, I think not many screens are nowadays, because most laptops are LED screens, but in the past where you have the CRT tubes and all that, it emits a lot of radiation. So it's best to have a screen protector, right? And of course, the posture of your hands also are important. It does not affect your heart as such, but the posture of the hands, especially when you rest your elbows and your arms, and if you do not get proper sort of position to it, and there are a lot of actually you can find it on the internet and all that. I can't recall offhand what are the kind, and I can't really describe it well, but you know, there are a lot of postures that you need to take to prevent what we call repetitive strain injuries, RSI. You know, you're on the computers the whole day, and after a period of time, you'll find that your hands become a little bit numb, and you get all sorts of aches and pains. That's because of the repeated injuries that, you know, as a result of the work that we do on the computers and all that. Back aches, neck pains are also important. Even reading, you know, looking at your handphones, okay? We always have a tendency to look down on the phones, okay? And after a period of time, because even for us as surgeons, you know, with the headlights that we wear and in operation theater for hours, we tend to have this posture where our head is flexed down. When I was much younger, not so long ago, the recovery from such long operations is quite okay. But nowadays, you now feel the strain of it, the back aches, the neck aches, and this kind of thing. So yes, these are all important factors that, you know, go towards your health as well. So there are ergonomically designed chairs, computer tables that even, for example, we lie in bed and we read or use the computers. Okay, the fact that we put our postures in a kind of C shape over a period of time, it will cause a lot of strain on our skeletal muscles. Okay, not just the spine, but also the muscles around the area. So there'll be a lot of strain on it, and we won't feel it immediately, but it'll be like many years down the line, we will start to feel it.
All right. We have an anonymous question, rather from an anonymous attendee. How do you reduce cholesterol without medication? Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible, but you have to realize that 70% of the cholesterol comes from the body. The cholesterol is actually produced by the liver, the big organ in the in the abdomen. And the liver processes the foods that we eat, especially the sugars and all that, okay? Now, people don't realize, people think that by eating fatty foods, oily foods causes cholesterol. Yes, but also at the same time, carbohydrates, high levels of carbohydrates. Why? Because carbohydrates that we take in the form of rice or bread or noodles and all that, or any other forms, cakes, they are processed into the body and in the form of sugar. Now, sugar, if you're not diabetic, after a while, as we eat, the sugar that floats in the bloodstream triggers a release of a hormone called insulin, okay, by an organ called the pancreas. Now, the insulin will help to maintain the blood sugar level at a healthy level between 4 to 6, okay? Now, those who are diabetics, there's abnormality of the insulin levels where you need extra insulin, or you need to get the insulin to be more sensitive to act onto the sugar levels. Now, over a period of time, if you keep on taking all these high carbohydrates, the insulin production will obviously be more released at a more chronic phase, right? Now, insulin itself stimulates the liver to produce cholesterol as well, okay? Now, not all cholesterol are bad. There are such thing called the good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. I do not like to use that because it indicates that, God made a mistake. For those of you, so there are what we call the HDL and LDL. The LDL functions by bringing cholesterol to the bloodstream, whereas the HDL will bring the cholesterol away from the bloodstream back to the liver to be reprocessed, okay? So you want a balance of a high HDL levels and a low LDL levels. How do you reduce your how do you maintain low total cholesterol and low LDL? Exercise, more fruits and vegetables in your body, cut down on your carbohydrates, very important, okay? Eat more complex carbohydrates in the form of, if it's rice, brown bread, for example, like I can recall things like sweet potatoes, and good oils like omega-3, olive oil. Those are good oils to eat and consume, and as well to cook with, okay? Now, if you want to cook, don't use extra virgin olive oil, because extra virgin oil has got very good health properties. But if you use it for your cooking and all that, you're paying, it becomes too expensive. There are alternative oils which will, has a higher higher heat point, which will not damage the food as such, okay? If you want to eat eggs, that's fine. Eggs are natural and good, healthy, but it's how you eat the eggs, because there's a myth to say that you cannot, if you have high cholesterol problems, you cannot eat eggs. That's not true. It's how you cook the eggs that's important, okay? Because again, I go by the principle that I'm sure all of us are God believing, you believe in the supreme being. It cannot be a mistake that eggs are bad for you, okay? It's just that how we cook the eggs is more important, okay? So eggs are okay, even if you've got high cholesterol levels, okay? Everything basically is you take in moderation. That's the most important thing. So exercise is so important. Maintain your body weight. You go a long way to sort of help to control your cholesterol levels. I got a few patients of mine, where they had to undergo a bypass operation. In fact, I remember one patient who was a health sort of inspector on one of the oil rigs, and he was so upset because he was giving health talks, and he ended up having a heart bypass operation. Many years ago, I had a gym instructor, had to undergo a bypass operation. You can imagine you're a gym instructor and you have to undergo a bypass operation, okay, because his cholesterol were abnormally high. But unfortunately, 70% of the cholesterol comes from our body, 30% comes from our diet. But even if you take care of that 30%, it helps to go a long way to help to maintain or reduce your cholesterol levels.
Okay, thank you very much. We're almost coming to the end of the session for today. It's almost 12 o'clock. So I think let's just take one last question, and then I think we can end it, and then I'll pass it back to the MC. So the last question is from Hazri Abdulaziz, and what is the best exercise that is good for the heart?
Any form of exercise is good for the heart, okay? But most importantly is how you do it consistently. A lot of us are inconsistent with exercise, including myself, okay? If you are comfortable, and again, depends on your age. You're comfortable playing badminton, go ahead. You're comfortable playing football, go ahead. If you're comfortable brisk walking, go ahead. Cycling, any form of exercise, okay? But I would say the best form of exercise where it sort of does less damage to your joints, because you have to remember that any of the exercises causes a lot of stress onto your joints. You play badminton, you're going to get repetitive joints injury to your knees and all that, contact sports as well. So I would say the best form of exercise is actually swimming, okay? Because it exercises all your body and muscles, and you also build, you exercise, both a combination of both aerobic exercise, especially aerobic exercise, as well as a bit of anaerobic exercise as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Swimming is something that I think most of us enjoy. So thank you so much, Dr. Mama Hamza, for your presentation today. We really do appreciate you coming online and sharing with us your expertise and knowledge with us. At this point, I would like to say thank you again, and I would like to hand back the virtual mic to the MC of today, Mr. Karina bin Abdul Jalil. So, sir, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vishal. Thank you, Dr. Mama Hamza. Perhaps you can answer a quick one for this one last question on the Q&A box. Do we need ECG test yearly?
No, you don't need to do the ECG test yearly. But what I would advise, once you're above, say, for example, 40 years of age or even 35 years of age, I would advise you to do a stress test. A stress test is you are running on a treadmill and they stick all these ECGs on you, and then you will see your response. Okay, so do that if you don't have all those other risk factors. You're not overweight, you don't smoke, your sugar control is okay, your blood pressure is okay. Maybe every 2-3 years. And you don't have to do it yearly. Okay, ECG does not pick up anything.
The stress test will be on
the stress test will pick up about 60 to 70% of heart conditions of this coronary artery disease. Okay, of course there are more other accurate tests, but at least it's a good screening tool. You want to check your cholesterol levels every 6 months or so. If it's normal every year perhaps, but if it's abnormal, maybe and you're on medication, every 6 months. You can check your blood pressure at home. You can check your sugar levels at home. Okay, so you don't really need to make it too expensive. Okay, unless of course, but at the same time, it's good to have a good health insurance as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for a very insightful presentation on this heart. Hopefully, we all be benefited from all this information and knowledge that we presented today. And on behalf of PAMSo and our chairman and our CSR committee of PAM, AR Muntaza, we would like to thank Dr. Muhammad Hamza for the session this morning, and also to Mr. HPTO from our partners today, Seamaster Spain. And thank you for all the attendees also. So do bear with us next year. We have a couple of webinar series in line next year that we're going to publish in our Facebook and our AG. Do follow us, and hopefully you can continue your support to PAMSo activities and programs. Okay, now we are come to end of this webinar. Please look into your screen. There'll be we already shared the sign up code for you to jot down and key in the Google form. Okay, I'll give you some time to take out the sign up code, and later we will share on the chat box as well. So with that, we will conclude this session. Thank you for bearing with us all this year, and thank you for attending. Hope to see you guys next year. Thank you very much.